Hey, it's Rebecca Rutherford. Welcome to the What in the Well podcast. My friend Angie Huber and I are here to provide an entertaining and relatable perspective on well-being. If you want to shift your mindset and make incremental progress toward your work and home life goals, you are in the right place.
Hello, everybody. Happy Friday, or whenever you're listening to this, happy whatever day it is. I'm Rebecca Rutherford. Angie Huber's here as always, and today we have Lori Gabrick, and we are going to be talking about personal growth, but we are excited to have everybody join the conversation. Season 2, episode 22, big landmark moment for us heading into our second year of What in the Well. And then Angie, why don't you kick it off by talking about our topic for this month?
Yeah. So as Rebecca shared, as you know, each month we have new topic areas for 2024, and March is all around personal growth and development. So on this particular podcast, we're going to go on a little journey to dive deep into the importance of your own personal growth and development. And there is nobody that I can think better to have this conversation with us today than our guest, Lori Gabrick. So Lori, welcome, first of all, to What in the Well podcast. We are excited to have you join us today. A little bit about Lori. I have the privilege to call Lori a friend and a colleague that I've known for the past, 14 years now. But Lori is one of the best people leaders, human leaders you will ever meet, hands down, that I've ever known. And I've been in the industry and been in corporate for 20 plus years, and she is just one of the best. So I'm very excited to have her introduce herself to you all today and really get her thoughts and perspectives and ideas around this topic of personal growth and development. So Lori, without further ado, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you introduce yourself to our community?
Hi, everybody, and thank you, Rebecca and Angie, for having me today. I'm so excited to just have this time with you all, just to be able to talk about this topic. It's such a great one. A little bit about me. So I started out a long 27-year career with McDonald's. Started out as a crew kid at the age of 16, and then just continued to work my way up through different leadership positions, as well as I became a trainer. Taught leadership development courses, so basic, intermediate, and advanced, and then became a consultant, which I spent 10 years in the consulting role. Absolutely loved it. Helped our franchisees with business practices, people development, operations, financials, all that good stuff. And then after leaving McDonald's, so I left McDonald's because I was going to have to relocate anywhere in the U.S. to continue to keep moving up. So I opened my own business. And so took the learnings that I had from my time at McDonald's and opened my own business. And then I came to Edward Jones. And so I've been with Edward Jones for 14 years. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we get into some of our discussion. But I'm also a wife, a mother of 4 children. I'm a grandmother of 9 grandchildren. So my life has truly been blessed. And I'm excited to be here today and just talk about just growth and development and how we help each other.
We are so excited to have this conversation with you today. And I have to tell you, when I saw your bio, there were so many things that really stood out to me about your experience in leadership. But I think at the heart of it, it feels to me like you're a relationship person. Mm-hmm. And of course, with your skills in training and development, you're very much into personal growth and development. So why don't you tell us and our audience a little bit more about what personal growth and development means to you?
Yeah, so thanks, Rebecca. It's such a great question. And so I put it into 3 different words. So it's about life, learn, and love. And in those 3 words, it's very powerful. So our life, like, we have all different kinds of experiences. We meet different people. We make different decisions. And then based on all of those things, we learn. Mm-hmm. And so learning is not just through a textbook, but it's more about those things and how we meet with people. And then how do you love? So how do you share that with others? It's a gift that we have, that learning. And then how do we share that out and help others?
Absolutely.
Oh, Lori, I love those three key areas. I wrote that down. Life, learn, and love. And how do you build personal growth and development from that? So, Lori, can you take us, like, share with us, how has personal growth and development impacted your life?
Yeah, so it's really, I think at the heart of it all, it has helped me develop deeper relationships. And so what I mean by that is, each stage of our life, and I would always share this with my kids, each stage of our life prepares us for the next stage. And we don't really realize that unless we stop and talk about it. And so as I think about when I was young, the different things that I learned helped me prepare for when I got into high school. And then after that period, as I started to become a mom and have children, that stage of life and what it taught me, and just the different people that came in and out of my life and what I learned from them, I think is just it's had such a profound impact. And I would say some of the decisions that I've made in my life have had profound decisions, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But then also the different people. And so I think if we take the time to really build the relationships with people and really think back on our, those different stages, we learn and we grow, and it prepares us and helps us in the next. It's definitely helped make me a better person, a better friend, a better mom, a better wife, and just a better worker in the workplace as well.
I
Absolutely.
love that. And what resonates so much about what you're saying is, and it's being what I'm hearing you say is I do truly believe every experience, each phase of our life is preparing us for the next.
Yeah.
If we're open,
Yes.
and reflect on it and understand. Sometimes I believe in life, things happen and you don't know why it's happening at the time. So how have you kind of learned to just trust or be open to, what, I'm not really sure why this is happening, or I'm struggling with this right now, but this is preparing me for whatever is coming next.
Yeah. So I think it's sharing, like it's talking, like it's having trust and talking to others. It's all about how we give and take with different people. And so I think, in just conversations with others, just learning, because everybody provides different perspectives as well. And so to your point, Angie, being open is one of the most important things. Like I feel as sometimes as women, as people, we try to be perfect, like always perfect, like that we don't want anybody to see that we might have flaws. And so if we're willing to be open and vulnerable, I think that's where our greatest learning comes. And so we all have successes and we have failures. And I feel that through those most successful times are the biggest failures that I've had has been my greatest learning, because I had to be open, because it went to the core of who I was. And so it made me realize that I'm not perfect. None of us are. And so by that, if we're willing to just look at that and accept that, then what do we want to do differently? And how do we go about doing that? And I think it's in our relationships that we really learn. It can be in a book, but I think for me personally, my greatest have been through my relationships.
And you know what's
Rebecca,
the biggest?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think the biggest thing that causes a lot of resistance to personal growth too is that it's painful a lot of times. And I
It
think
is.
not being open to it just really kind of keeps us stuck in that pain. And so it's like this, you have to be able to consciously choose resilience through those times as opposed to resistance. It's just one of the biggest barriers that people have to personal growth. I would love, and I know everybody here would, to hear some of your personal stories and experiences.
Yeah. So thank you. My red shoe story, Angie knows this one so well. I told her this one so long ago. This is at a young age. And so there are things that I don't remember, but this was so profound that I remember it. And it's called my red shoe story. And so when I was in fifth grade, so we lived in Illinois, and when I was in fifth grade, we moved over to Missouri. And it was in like the last month of school. And so I am getting on the school bus. My dad owned shoe stores. And so my dad always gave me these really cool shoes, which in my other school was really awesome. But on that day, I wore a pair of red shoes and I got onto the school bus and people started laughing at me and they were making fun of my shoes. And I, in that moment, felt so alone because I was different. And it just went to the core of who I am. I still today, it still affects me. And so what that did for me, I would sit there and I'd have tears running down my cheeks, and everybody every day till we got out of school, thank goodness it was May, my eyes, I would tear up, and because I just felt so alone. And so people would ask me like, what's wrong with you? And I would just say, different things like, oh, I got a cold or whatever it was. And what that did for me was I never wanted anyone to be alone. And so when I would see people as I went into school, because the next year everything was great, I had friends, I started, learning and meeting new people and stuff, but it changed the core of who I was because I hate seeing people alone. And so when I got into high school, if I saw somebody sitting alone, I would ask them to come over and join our friends. My daughters, I told them this story. My daughters, both the core of them now, they hate seeing people sitting alone. And it's and I walk down the street, and when I'm on a walk, I wave at people all the time. And sometimes people wave back and sometimes they don't. And it's just about having that connection with others, because I don't want anybody to ever feel like they're different or alone. And actually, I have a pair of red shoes today that I wear proudly, so I brought those.
Yeah.
Because I overcame that and I learned from it. And at a young age, it was one of my greatest learnings. And it shaped who I am today. And it shaped me from that moment all the way through. So that's my red shoe story.
I love that so much. It was giving me chills, and I have a feeling that every time you see red shoes out in the wild, it just kind of is that little message from the universe to remember that and to just kind of refresh your memory about that and what that
Yes.
truly means to you. I think it speaks so much to your character that was an opportunity for you to experience that pain, but then find what good could come out of that. I thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah, and I would say, I think that all of us have stories like that make profound differences. I'll share another, like when I was becoming Catholic. So I got married, I wasn't Catholic, and my husband was. And so I was going through the classes to become Catholic. And they made one of the exercises was to draw our lifeline on a piece of paper. And so we were supposed to draw like, what are those biggest highs in your life? And what are the biggest lows? And so we all pointed that or drew that out. And so then they asked if anybody wanted to share. And so there was this lady in my class, gorgeous. She was absolutely beautiful, looked like she had everything going for her in the world. And she raises her hand and said, I'll share. And in that moment, I thought, like, what is she going to share? Like, her whole life is going to be hills. Like, I can't imagine what she's going to share, but it's all going to be positive. And when she told her life story, I sat there, and for a moment I thought, how could I think like, but that was my thinking at the time. Like, people have these perfect lives. And what it did for me was realize no one walks this earth has a perfect life. We all have highs and we all have lows. And in those highs and lows become our greatest opportunities for learning. And how do we help others when they're going through those highs, like celebrating, like high-fiving and, celebrating and championing them, but in the lows, being there to listen and to offer help when they're going through those lows. And that was another profound learning for me. And so I have had the opportunity to lead people that have gone through some really hard things. And I always tell them that story. Like, no one has a perfect life sometimes. And so it makes them feel not alone as they're going through that situation. And so then I share with them like that story. I said, we all have highs and lows. And you can't give up. Like, this too will pass. And so just sitting in that moment with them and listening and helping them work through that so that they can learn and grow and come out of that space as well. That was another one that had a profound impact on me.
And it also sounds too that, Lori, it's you can be there that somebody can share their story with. and not be ashamed, right?
Yes.
Tell your story. We all have stories. Let's not hide behind them. Let's get them out and
Yeah.
let's support each other in that.
Yeah. And sometimes I think it's the voices in our head
Mhm.
that think, if I share that I'm invulnerable, people will think less of me. And it's usually in reverse of that, that's where people, because then they can see themselves, because we all have highs and lows and we all have failures and successes. And so then people can relate and you become more of a person. And I think that's where our deepest relationships open up as well.
You said something earlier that Rebecca and I want to celebrate with you as part of this podcast and our community. And I think we even did an episode on this around the gifts of imperfection. Perfection is, we don't like perfection here. We love the imperfect. We love the vulnerability. We lean into it, right? We don't want to, we're not shooting for perfection here, right? We're shooting for wholeness and authenticity and learning. So I love that. And that really resonated as you were sharing that. Lori, curious, what do you love about the topic of personal growth and development?
Yeah, I think the word personal. And so that's what I love about it, because it is personal to each of us. And so if we are, we should sit there for a moment as we think about who we are. What is our purpose? Like, what at the end of our life, and we look back on it, how did we spend our life? And so that's what I love about personal growth and development, is to just sit with yourself for a moment. What's most important to you? What is your purpose? Are you living out your purpose? And if not, what do you need to do to change that? Like Angie and I had talked about, like, helping people through our stories. And here I am, like, this is awesome. Like, because we all have stories to help each other. And then how do we share those? So I think it's personal to you, but then how do you share your gifts with others? Like, how do we each think about how we open that up and help others?
Absolutely. And one of the things that is kind of like triggering a thought for me is, I used to work with a man, and one of my favorite things about how he managed people within our company, he was extraordinarily into personal growth, and just, he was so dedicated to the people in the company. He would try to memorize their spouse's birthdays and stuff like that. He was amazing. But every time that we were in a meeting where something maybe kind of complicated was coming up and there are different perspectives being shared, it always kind of caused a silence in the room to think about it. But he would always start by saying, when I hear you say that, the story that I'm choosing to tell myself about what you actually mean is XYZ. And he would always start with that. And it was just so disarming, because it reminded everybody that truly we are weaving together these stories based on the inputs that we have. And the further impact that had on me was that was something that I started to say to myself. If I started to get kind of worked up about something, I would think, okay, well, what story am I telling myself about this? And is it true? And is there an opportunity to see that as just a story that I'm creating based on fear or some other factor? And how can I change the narrative if I am to grow from this?
Yeah, I love that. That is so true. And it is those stories we tell ourselves. And I can't tell, I have a gazillion of them, of all the stories I've told myself.
Oh.
Share another one or two. Is there another one or two that come up?
Yeah. So
she's like, I'm so glad you asked.
I'm so glad you asked. So
we want to share.
Yeah.
So one of them was like, so leaving McDonald's and then open my own business. So and I really have two around this space. So for the first time in my life, I didn't have, when I left McDonald's, like, I had to turn my company car in, my corporate credit card, my laptop, everything. And I remember driving home that evening, and I was like going through grief. Like, what have I done? Like, this has been my life for 27 years. And actually how it came about opening my own business is, like, all of a sudden, like, because of some of the decisions of having to relocate and stuff, and I didn't want to move the kids, is I read a book in one day on how to open a boutique. Because one of my consultant friends, when we were traveling, said, if you ever left McDonald's, what would you do? And I said, I don't know. I'm never going to leave McDonald's. He said, no, seriously, what would you do? And this is the most bizarre thing. Out of my mouth pops, well, I would probably open a place for girls. And so he said, what would you call it? And I said, I have no idea. Like, I don't know. And he goes, no, seriously, what would you call it? And I said, my girls. And he said, yes, because you always say my girls when you're talking about your girls. So anyway, when I made the decision to leave McDonald's, I had bought this book online, How to Open a Boutique. I was in Las Vegas at a convention when I made my mind up to leave McDonald's. So I get home, I read the book in one day. Next week I was on vacation and I was with a real estate agent and a general contractor in the space where I built my girls. And so when I called Dan, I was like, hey, you're never going to guess what? I'm leaving McDonald's to go open my girls. And so here I am, day one. I read the book, I'm in the space. I have no idea what I'm doing. So talk about a huge development learning opportunity. All I know is this book. And I'm not a creative person, but for a moment in time, I became extremely creative. And I said, based on that book, here's what I want to do. I booked a flight to go to Dallas to the market. And then I flew to Atlanta to be the market, to be a buyer. I've never been a buyer in my life. So what I did was I shared with every merchant, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm new to this. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. But I have this idea that I'm building. And so I couldn't believe how many wonderful people there were that were willing to just help me. And so we built My Girls. One of the other things that I wanted to do with My Girls was to give back. And so I remember, like, there was this little girl that came in and I had a big pink limo. So that's a whole nother topic for another day. But I had a big pink limo and this dad brings this little girl in and she wants to do a limo party. And he's like, we can't do a limo party. We're only gonna do it right, because they were going to surprise her. So anyway, they leave. And I get it a couple days later, one of their neighbors came in and said he had fallen down the stairs and was in the hospital. They didn't know if he was going to live. And so this little girl, part of what I wanted to do as a business owner was give back. And so we rallied around this little girl. We did the limo party. We did everything. All of her teachers were there, everything. And again, that was that learning moment. Like, how do I set up a successful business? How do I give back? I had a purpose, but then living that purpose. And it was in that moment of giving back that was one of the most successful pieces that I felt of owning that business. The other thing was that I hired each of the girls that worked there, because we did nails, makeup, hair, all that. We had a big runway where we did fashion show. We celebrated their birthdays and all of that. And I said to each of them, I want these little girls that come in here to look up to you and say, someday I want to be just like her. And I set that expectation with each of those girls. And I'm telling you what, they all rose to the occasion. And so it was a learning for them too, of the impact that they would have on these little girls. And so such an important learning. We got off to a great start, shot a commercial, had to go to Disney, get the rights for a Hannah Montana song for it, for spoof. So had no idea what I was doing there either. And then Show Me St. Louis came out, did a story on us. So successful. I would walk into mass on Sunday morning, little girls would be waving. And so we were like rock stars for that period of time. And then the economy changed in 08, 09, and I had to close. And that was a very difficult time because I just saw my dream like end. And so sadness came over, obviously. And then because of my time at McDonald's, one of my leaders at McDonald's reached out to me and said, hey, I have this position in home office training I think you'd be great for. And I said, I know nothing about the financial industry. No, thanks. And she said, you'll be great. And so I got hired in, and that's how I ended up at Edward Jones, which I'm still at today. And that's where I met Angie, because we first started working together.
I mean, Rebecca, personal growth all in there. I don't even know, like,
Well-
right? From the time to make to the courage to leave a 27-year career, to follow a passion and to continue to live your purpose, to not knowing a thing about being an entrepreneur and taking the steps and look, I mean, the learning and the courage to just ask for help.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, there was so much about like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but you reached out and networked and told your story and received help and support to the all the learnings that happened then like you said, then the ending of that, which is also personal growth
Mhm.
and
Yes.
development to take the next leap into this phase.
Yeah, Lori, I heard, so I was over here picking up on certain words that the story I was choosing to tell myself about what what the underlying beliefs
Listen.
were in that whole process. Because
Yeah.
personal growth and development it can be so hard, but to hear you talk about it, it seems like in some ways you're kind of a natural at it, right? Not that it
I
comes
don't know if I
easy.
would say. Yeah.
Well, so what I hear in there is thematically like some core beliefs and some
Yeah.
underlying mindset around it, like ability to remain curious and open to what opportunities may arise, the humility to ask questions, things like that. So what else is in there as far as like what it takes in order to be capable of personal growth and development from a mindset and core belief perspective?
Yeah, and I'm so glad you asked that because there's just one other story that really just shaped my life. And Angie actually played a role in this, and I don't know if she'll remember. But when I came to Edward Jones, so here I am again in another learning experience. And one of the things as a leader, it was a requirement to have your Series 7 and 66. Those are licensing exams that we have to have in Edward Jones for certain positions. And so they are not easy by any means. They equate the Series 7 as something like taking the bar. And so here I am, new industry, new team that I'm leading. And again, I don't know anything about the financial industry whenever I got hired in. So I had to study and to prepare for this test. And if I didn't pass the test, I was going to be let go. And so I was going to lose my job that I just got if I couldn't pass this test. So I'd been studying. I gave up my life basically to just pour my soul into studying because I didn't want to fail. And I was going to be embarrassed. And part of it is because my leader from McDonald's who brought me in, I didn't want to disappoint her and I didn't want to disappoint myself or my family. And so I just poured myself into it. The day of the test, I said, if I miss this thing by 1 point, I will die. And that was a self-fulfilling prophecy. I didn't believe in myself enough. And guess what happened? I failed by 1 point. And so I had to pick myself up and go back to the office and face everybody that I failed. And so I had a month to study again. And so again, poured myself into it, studied, day of test. I go in and I'm first half. I'm just like, because you would take first half, then you would take a lunch, and then you would take the second half. First half, I'm just like, it's not going to happen. And so I went out to take my lunch and I sat in the little lobby, called my husband, and I said, I can't do it. I am too stupid. I can't do it. I've studied, I've worked so hard, and I can't do it. I can't go back in and finish the test. And I really did. I didn't have faith in myself. And he said, it's okay. And I am bawling. Like I am bawling. And he said, it's okay. He said, you found this job, you will find another one. It's all right. And he said, but I'm gonna leave you one thing. He said, if you don't go back in, you will never ever know that if whether or not you would have passed or not. And that to me, knowing you, Lori, will be far worse than whether you fail.
Mhm.
And so I sat there and licked my wounds and dried my tears and all of that. And I went in and I rocked that test. And I got cocky. I'm like, I know you, I know you, I know you to the questions quietly because it was in a testing center. And I pushed that button, and it was the longest moment of my life when it was calculating the score. And when the score popped up, I had achieved it. So the lesson in that is don't ever give up because you don't know what's on the other side. And the other side was that I've had a wonderful career here at Edward Jones. And Angie wrote me a note, and it was this wonderful little note that she had in there. It was actually when I failed the first time, I think. And it was, pull up at the end, it said, pull up your big girl pants and let's go. And so I still remember that verb today. And I still have that voice in my head whenever I'm feeling that way. Pull up your big girl pants and get on with it. So I would
think it
say
was
that,
something like, give yourself a day, be sad, feel sorry for yourself, but
yes,
then
that was,
tomorrow,
she remembers.
That is so Angie.
fill up your
It is
like,
so Angie. That's
give
why I
yourself
love
a
her.
day, cry, scream, feel sorry,
Right.
wallow, the whole thing, do what you gotta do, but tomorrow pull up your big girl pants and
You're
get it.
rewriting that note. That was like the exact words to that note. And this is now what, 14 years later, and she still remembers. But it was that moment. And so I think for personal development and growth, don't ever give up, because you never ever know. And he was right. That would have haunted me the rest of my life.
Yeah. Well,
Rebecca,
another thing,
I don't know about you, but like each time, and Lori, I've heard some of these stories. I have chills. You're bringing me to tears. Like I have tears over here. They're just so powerful. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Rebecca.
well, so another thing that I'm picking up here too, Lori, is that support system that you have around you,
Yeah.
that when you feel inside of yourself that you don't have it, you may not have what it takes in that moment, relying on your support network. And that kind of goes back to
Yes.
that life, learn, and love.
Yeah.
If you have
Yes.
people who love you enough to tell you the truth and to
Yep.
tell you to pick up, put on your big girl pants and move on, those are
Yeah.
what you need. Those are the kinds of people that
Yes.
help facilitate growth for you.
Yes. And we all need that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and part about love is love yourself, but in those moments when self-doubt has kicked in and hijacked you,
Yeah.
Rebecca, to your point, who is your network that loves you, that will allow you? Because sometimes when you were down and you got that story, right? In that moment,
Yes.
Lori, you were like, self-doubt had kicked in and hijacked, and there was no way you're going to survive. Yet you
Yeah.
reached out to love, your support network, that was able to kick in and give you some additional perspective.
Yeah, and it's interesting because sometimes that self-doubt can be years. Like, I just had a conversation with my mother-in-law, and, I've been married for over 30 years now. And so they're, all my sister-in-laws, my mother-in-law, everybody's teachers and stuff. And so I was just like, I don't know. I just always felt like, did I measure up or whatever to their standards? And so I was having a conversation with my mother-in-law several months ago, and she's in her 90s now. And she said, I've always thought of you as an overachiever. And I didn't know what she meant by that. I don't know that that was a positive. And I looked at her, and for the first time, I felt like I kind of stood up for myself. And I said, do you want to know why I'm an overachiever? And this goes back to kind of that Series 7 thing where I said, I'm stupid. I said, because I don't want anybody to ever say that I'm stupid. And she was shocked by it. But I think that sometimes we feel like we're not worthy enough, or we're not good enough, or whatever. And we allow that to kind of filter in some cases. Like, I don't feel that with a lot of people, but for some reason I felt that with her. And she never really did anything to me to make me feel that way, but she had some judgments in there. And so she was shocked by my answer, and we have the best relationship now and she goes, I think you and I finally really do understand each other. And I said, I think we do, because she was like, no, like, and she understood why I worked so hard.
Later. That's 27 years later.
30 years later.
30 years later.
Because she wanted her son to be a priest. Like, that was the first thing she said to me. And so, I always felt like, like my kids were all in sports and all of those things. And so it was important to me to raise kids that were, that would see how hard we work and to learn and all of those things. And so, but to hear her say that, and that was the moment. And it was such a great moment for both of us, I think. And when she said, I think we finally now understand each other. And I said, I think so too. And we hugged. She had tears in her eyes, because I think she realized the impact that she had had on me for those years as well.
Interesting. Lori, is there any additional perspective or any stories that you wanted to share that we haven't shared yet with our community?
I would say, it's about people and relationships. I think that's the heart of it all. And when we see someone, really see them for who they are, and don't judge people for the decisions or whatever they're making. And I'll give you a story again about my McDonald's days. I mean, some people feel that McDonald's is a dead end job, that you can never go anywhere if you work for McDonald's. And so money doesn't mean like somebody's self-worth is different than someone else's. I mean, we're all people, we're all human beings on this thing called life. And again, it goes back to the highs and lows of our life. And there was a teacher that in my daughter's class that was telling them, like, you better do this or you're going to end up at McDonald's. And that is a dead end. So my daughter's sitting there and hears this. And she comes home and she's upset. Like, she's embarrassed in front of her friends because they all know I work for McDonald's. And so I asked the teacher if I could spend some time with her. And I went in and I shared with her, what makes you say that? Like, why do you tell the class that? And so she's like, well, because I don't want to end up at a dead end job. And I said, how do you place worth on someone's life? Like, what does that mean to you? And is it the amount of money someone makes that makes you think that someone's life is more important than someone else's? Because that's what's happening as you're talking to the kids. That's what you're teaching them. And I said, we're all human beings, and we may choose to work at McDonald's. We may choose to be a janitor. We may choose to be a surgeon. We may choose to be the president. We may choose to be whatever, but we should be whatever we want to be. And no one should ever take that dignity away. And that's my message to the kids, because if it makes them happy, then that's what matters. And I will tell you that my days at McDonald's was one of the greatest of learning teamwork and how to take care of others. Like, I used to love to go out in the morning and pour coffee for the little men's group that were with that, their wives had passed away, and they would get together every morning, and I would learn so much from them. I would just go out and talk to them. But it was a connection. It was a personal connection. And so that's one of my other things about life is we can never put value on someone's life based on the amount of money they make. We're all human beings. We all have feelings. We're all trying to survive this thing called life. If we take a moment and just care for each other, what a better place we'll be.
Absolutely.
So I learned a lot through my McDonald's years as well.
I love that. And I love that question that you posed, because what an introspective opportunity. And to truly think about when you're interacting with people, if you remove all of the superficiality and all of the value that our society places on certain things. I mean, at the end of the day, we're just human beings having this life experience that's unique to each of us. And if we are all chasing this same big dream of, wealth or whatever it may be, then a lot of us are growing in the wrong direction. We're making decisions based on something that isn't even ours. So that's a fantastic story and demonstration of, really kind of understanding yourself and your motivation for the way that you look at life.
Yeah. And I will say that for me personally too, is that one of the core and purpose for me is to be successful so I can give back to charities and help others that are less fortunate or sick or have life situations that happen. And so that is always my hope, is that I can be successful so that I can help give back for people that have situations that they can't be, have the money to take care of certain things.
Exactly. Because there is that reverse mentality too, where it's like, I shouldn't want wealth or I shouldn't want status. And it's really not about what the wealth and status mean to other people, but it's what you can do with that. If you have good intentions behind achieving all that, then achieve all day long.
Yes, that is my message. Like, we should want great things. But then also for me personally, then is how do then I share some of that with others. And so I always want to continue to be successful because that helps me live out my purpose.
Absolutely. So as we kind of start to near the closing out period, do you have any top 3 or so key takeaways that you'd like to leave our listeners with regarding personal growth and development?
Yeah. So these are my top 3. And so no one has the perfect life. Like, none of us. We all have highs and lows. And so how do we take and turn our successes and our failures into personal growth? And then carrying that out to that love is then how do we help others? How do we share that with others and help others grow as well? The other thing is my most favorite quote of all is be remembered for the things that matter. And so how do we help make, ourselves like the best version of ourselves? And then how do we help others? And so, as I was sharing earlier with you, I just went to 2 different funerals in the last 2 weeks, one a 34-year-old and then a 27-year-old. And it was just interesting driving away, like from the funerals on both of those. I thought they're just gone. Like, in a moment, they're just gone. And so, and everybody else goes on. I was watching everybody just drive like down the road. And I'm like, they used to drive down these roads and now they're not here. But what is left is the memories of them and the impact that they had on others. And it was interesting as people talked about them, the stories were all about the impact that they made and had on them and their lives. And I found that to be very interesting. And to me, that's one of the most important things about life is what is that impact and what do we do for others and help ourselves grow and help each others. And then the last one is my series 7. It goes back to my series 7. Don't ever give up. Yeah. You never know what's on the other side. And if you give up, that you'll never know. And so just keep swimming, just keep going, and don't ever give up, because usually through our most challenging situations, there's a light on the other side. And it's pretty awesome whenever you get to experience that.
Yeah. So
Lori, yeah, go ahead. I was good. Do you want to transition? Yeah. So it's okay. So yeah. Lori, so one of the things that Rebecca and I are starting to do is a segment called What is Saving Your Life Right Now? And so we'd love to share any products or services or resources or books that you're reading around our topic. So is there anything that is saving your life right now or that you're loving, maybe not saving your life, but something you're loving around personal growth and development?
Yeah, so I have 2 things that I'm doing right now. One of them is the weather starting to turn. And so I got some new earpods. And so I'm just walking. And I love to, when I'm walking, I'll go for like a 3-mile walk and I just look up at the sky and it just gives me time to think. And so it's number one, helping me with just physical wellness, but also my mental wellness. It's a moment for me just to get away from everything, listen to my favorite playlist and music. I have one that's good for the soul. And so it's just listening and just kind of thinking through like the last week, what's ahead and anything really that comes to my mind. So I just absolutely love that. It's for personal wellness. And then the second thing is I mentioned earlier that I became Catholic. So right now it's Lent. And so, I don't think I've ever taken it as serious as I am this year. And so for whatever reason, I listened to the priest as as Lent was starting. And I just thought, I want to be different when I come out of this Lent season. And so every night when I get in bed, I lay down and I listen to a podcast basically, and it's prayers. And it's saying the Lenten prayer, and it makes you just stop and think about your day and, what did you do that day? And is there anything you're sorry for that day? And how did you just makes you do some reflection on it. And so I do that every night. And that is just, it makes me think about what I am doing and I am living out my purpose, and how will I be different on Easter when I've come through this Lenten period. And so for me, when I talk about good for the soul, that is good for the soul. And I love things that go deep and make me think about, and then how do I continue to evolve and just be a better version of myself.
Yeah, what a powerful practice that is, to be able to spend that time just in pure reflection. So thank you for sharing that with us. So Lori, we have absolutely loved this conversation. I know that personally, I am taking so much away from you. You are a trove of wisdom, but also just having this time to learn from you as a professional grower and somebody who professionally helps other people grow. I know that I speak for everybody listening when I say that there's no possibility that you can't take away something from these stories that you've shared. I mean, every time I see a red shoe, I'm gonna think of you. I'm gonna think of the opportunity to make sure that people are not alone. So thank you for that. So thank you everyone for joining us today. ask yourself as you go through these next few weeks, what is the one thing that you can do today in terms of your own personal growth and development and your own wellness overall? So until next time, thank you for signing on. We will talk to you soon, and just be well.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of What in the Well. Be sure to review, rate, and subscribe to our podcast. And if you have a topic you'd like us to cover, share it in the comments. Stay well until we meet again.